At some point during a long-term grid down situation or emergency, your water faucet is going to quit working. Your bottled water is going to run out. What are you going to do then? You can have safe drinking water during any crisis. My name is Les, and I want to welcome you to the Chef Prepper channel. And in this video, we're going to discuss how to turn unsafe water into safe to drink water and the materials and methods that you'll need to do so. There are three primary ways to turn unsafe water into safe drinking water: filtering, sterilization, and purification. Each one of these is a different, distinct process. Each one of them will address different potential contaminants that are in your source water that you're going to use during the time when your faucet no longer works. Therefore, it becomes very, very important to understand as much as you can about the water from your primary water source. That will help determine which method of water treatment that you need to use, or combination of methods that you need to use. The three primary methods of turning unsafe water into safe drinking water. For this video, we're not going to consider pre-filtering, where you would run your water through a t-shirt or a coffee filter or something along those lines to remove the large debris, sticks, algae, sediment, silt, mud, and so forth. You probably will need to do that type of filtering before you use any of the other treatment methods, but that type of filtering in and of itself won't make your water safe to drink. Now let's talk about filtering water to make it safe to drink. So water filters come in all different sizes and shapes, like these individual water filters, which you might take with you hiking or camping, all the way up to household size filters. And different filters are designed to remove different amounts and different types of contaminants. I put a link in the description box below to a water filter that's designed for home use and that takes the gravity-fed water filters to another level. I also included a discount code, CHEF20, that will get you a 20% discount. This filter is made by the sponsor of today's video, Membrane Solutions. Those of you that have been with us for a while here on the Chef Prepper channel have seen from previous videos that over the years we've had a similar water filter here in our kitchen. Probably the most popular water filter there is of this type. But now we've replaced that water filter with the Membrane Solution stainless steel gravity-fed water filter for these reasons. A filter capacity of 9,000 gallons, 3 gallons per day per person for a family of 4 for more than 2 years. This is the first of the stainless steel home-sized gravity-fed water filters that zaps the water with UV light after the filtering process. The number of different contaminants that it removes and the level of the removal. The link to the water filter down in the description box and the discount code CHEF20, which will get you 20% off of not only this filter, but of any and all of the outdoor water filters that they have on the website. Everything they have is on sale during the Black Friday sales event. So if you're going to use a filter to treat your water, you need to know what your filter is capable of doing. They remove things like dirt, sand, sediment, and some pathogenic microorganisms. Some filters will remove more of those things, some will remove less of those things. It's very important to know what your filter is designed to do. Things like dirt, dust, sediment, some pathogenic microorganisms like bacteria, protozoans, parasites, some viruses. Some filters will remove more of those things than others. Again, you got to know what your filter is designed to do. They don't kill viruses and bacteria. They remove most of those. They also do not remove most chemicals, heavy metals, and those types of contaminants. However, some filters, like some of these larger filters, will remove some chemicals, some of those types of contaminants. Got to know what your filter is designed to do. The next method of treating water that we're going to look at is sterilization. It kills pathogenic microorganisms. Viruses, bacteria, protozoans, parasites, and so forth. The reason to use sterilization is to make your water biologically safe to drink. But if your source water has chemicals and heavy metals in it, sterilization is not going to remove those, so your water still might not be safe to drink. That's why it's so important to know what the potential contaminants are in your primary and your secondary source of water. There are three primary ways of sterilizing water. One, of course, is to boil it. A second way is to use chemicals. And a third way to sterilize water is UV light. But I do not have a ultraviolet light method of doing it. But I do have two water filters that use UV light as like a backup. And I'll show you both of those before the video is over. Living microorganisms, the bacteria, viruses, and so on. It doesn't remove sediments, particles, chemicals, heavy metals, and so on. Yet again, that's why it's so important to know about the water from your primary and your secondary water sources. The third method of water treatment that we're going to talk about is purification. The goal of purifying water is to remove all the contaminants, the pathogens or the biological contaminants, the chemical contaminants, and the sediments, the sand, mud, and so forth. There are two primary methods of purification that are readily available to those of us in the world of preparedness. That would be reverse osmosis, like this thing you see here. I'll show you a little bit more about that later. The second way would be distillation. The biological things, the pathogens, the chemicals, the heavy metals, and the sediments and so forth that are in the water. A little more advanced, and they require a little more stuff, a little more expensive in most cases, and they may require more resources to get to the finished product. So which method should you use? If the water from your primary water source is something like a really nice clean stream or rainwater or water that you get from a drilled well, filtering is probably going to do the job just fine for you. If your source water is from a pond, a lake, or a larger stream that has lots of use, you might want to use the sterilization, or you might want to use some filtering and sterilization. And if the water from your primary water source is heavily contaminated, or you're not certain about the water from that water source, you might want to depend upon purification. Water filters come in a very large variety of sizes and abilities. Like from the individual water filters you might take hiking or camping, all the way up to household size or group size that you typically would have in your home or on a bug out location if you were trying to equip a bug out location. Earlier in the video I told you that I had two water filters that use UV light in addition to the actual filters. And this gravity fed filter from the sponsor of today's video, Membrane Solutions, is one of those two filters. So let me show you what I'm talking about. When you turn the spigot on to get your water out, the very last thing that happens is a UV light zaps the water just before it comes out into your glass. So that's an example of a filter that also uses sterilization as part of the overall treatment of the water. There are also some purification methods that use filters as part of their process of treating the water as well. Some examples of ways or materials to sterilize water would include boiling, also chemicals. There are many different types of tablets out there. Most of them are derivatives of chlorine or bleach. The primary ingredient in this one is sodium chlorite. The main ingredient in this one is sodium dichloroisocyanate, still a derivative of bleach. A lot of people are familiar with this one. It uses a derivative of iodine or iodine. And the third method of sterilization, which I don't have any examples of, be like these. The UV light, which you could run your water through if you have a way to do that when those type of times come. And then there's also this one, the SteriPen, which you use inside a glass of water. So those are your primary sterilization methods or things. Of course, if you want no doubts about your sterilization, boil your water. And if you choose boiling as your primary method of water treatment, how long do you have to boil your water? You actually only have to reach a rolling boil for 1 minute. That is if you're at sea level all the way up to an altitude of 6,500 feet. If you're at an altitude higher than that, you need to boil it for at least 3 minutes. You want to do that indoors when the grid's down. You're going to need some type of stove and fuel that's safe to use indoors. We have several videos about stoves and fuels that are safe to use indoors. And that brings us to the purification examples. Now, I only have one purification filter or machine, and that is this reverse osmosis filter. Now, you can't see it here, but this too has a UV light that does that last second zapping of the water. This is an example of a purification method that uses a combination of filtering and sterilization. I don't have an example of a distiller to show you. I will probably never have a distiller to treat water because I'm confident in the other methods that we talked about and looked at. Not saying you shouldn't distill your water. In my understanding, that is the very best way to treat any source of water to make sure it is the cleanest that it can possibly be. Can be a bit expensive, can be time consuming, and it can require quite a bit of fuel. Therefore, here we're going to depend upon one of or a combination of these other methods that we looked at. So how about you guys? What is going to be, or what is, your primary way of treating unsafe water to make it safe to drink? For one thing to keep in mind about a reverse osmosis filter, this one is a tabletop. You don't connect it to anything other than the outlet in your wall. But if you're going to depend upon a reverse osmosis filter to treat your water when the grid's down, you're still going to need some way to provide power to the reverse osmosis filter. We have these videos where I've reviewed multiple power stations and solar generators. Hey guys, don't forget, we are giving away a power station, but you got to watch this video, make a comment in that video, and there's a key phrase or word that you have to include in your comment. Check the video out for your chance to get a free power station. Fourth method of treating your water that's easy to do, readily available, is pasteurization. Pasteurization is a heating process, but it's not boiling the water. So with any stove and fuel combination that you would use to boil the water, you could pasteurize it instead. But if your only fuel choice is something like the tea candles, pasteurization might be the ticket. Here's why. To pasteurize water, you don't have to bring it to a rolling boil. You only have to bring it to a minimum of 149 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 minutes. But most places will recommend that you do it for 15 minutes, just in case the temperature fluctuates a little bit. So if you heat your water to 149 degrees for 15 minutes, then your water is pasteurized, which means it's biologically safe to drink just as if you had boiled the water. And if you have to use tea candles, boiling water is difficult at best. But getting water to 149 degrees with tea candles isn't that difficult to do. Pasteurization does the same things for the water that boiling does. Of course, boiling's probably going to make you feel quite a bit better about the water. And of course, just like any of the other methods, if your water has debris or it's cloudy, you need to pre-filter it before you do the pasteurization. One last thing about pasteurization. The higher the temperature, the shorter amount of time that you need to keep it at that temperature.